to see it. So if you want to follow along, these are going to be the exact slides that are on the screen as well. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get us started, and we can. Hey, look at that! All right. Well, we are so excited about what God is doing here at Resurrection, and especially excited about where we are and where God has taken us. As we kind of begin, I want to talk about the call that God has put on our hearts as a church, as a congregation, that we believe that God has uniquely placed us here in the city of Katy to be, if we can get to the next slide, kind of our mission to serve the least, the last, the lost, to go outside of our comfort zones, to resurrect lives for Christ. That God has not just set us here to just fold in on ourselves and kind of be a club, but called us to be a church. Called us to reach out to our community, to share the gospel, to share the love of Jesus Christ. And we believe that our vision is to be that church that is a scripturally sound Wesleyan church that is kind of the flagship for the Global Methodist Church in the west side of Houston. And in fact, that's a term that we look at a lot as a congregation, as we look to our place in the larger conference. We stand as the flagship for new churches. We are approaching building and purchase way before many of the other churches that are in a similar place. God has blessed us in an immense amount of ways, and we believe that we are setting the standard for churches behind us, and we are setting a place, not just for our congregation, but for global Methodism as a whole in Katy and in the west side of Houston. So God has granted us that vision. We've done a lot of work. There's been a journey for us to where we are today. Really, very quickly after we started the church, building team was formed. And that building team began working on a lot of different things. One of those things was working with an architectural firm to develop an idea of what a master plan might be. We kind of got the gold standard of what we think we might envision to be one day. And if you've got the money to buy the gold standard, we will be glad to do that. But it was able to kind of give us an idea of where is God leading us. What do we need? We need about 8 to 10 acres in order to be able to be the church that we think God has called us to be on this side. And from that, we've been working at identifying land. We'll talk about that in a minute. Last year, of course, we had our capital campaign. We also were able to look, because of that, at our finances and see what of that master plan is affordable and reasonable for us right now. And that has kind of helped us to really focus in a bit more on kind of what we're going to say is our current master plan, our current next steps. And with that, we were able to identify some property. So we've got a lot of things to go for today, but I think the place for us to start is kind of look at where we are financially. I'm going to invite Phil to kind of give us a very brief statement of kind of where we are financially in our current financial position.
He said very brief, and it probably means also very boring, but I'm going to take you guys through this anyway. This is a really exciting day in the life of our church. We have a chance to take a step forward in fulfilling one of the pillars of our vision as Resurrection Church. And what I want to talk to you about right now in just a few minutes is our current financial position. So if you'll just bear with me here, I suspect these slides are hard to read on the screen, so I'm going to take you through them. This is something we talked about before, but I want to clarify it again. The way we maintain our funds at Resurrection Global Methodist Church is that we have an operating fund and we have a capital fund. There's a strict firewall between the funds. They are in separate accounts and they do not mix. When you donate money for your regular tithe or offering, it goes into the operating fund. When you donate money that is designated to capital, it goes into the capital fund. Again, those funds are not mixed. So just to put it in a short way, wherever you say you want your offering to go, that is the fund that it goes in, and those are the purposes your funds are used for. The operating fund serves our core ministries. It handles our payroll, it handles all of our ministry programs and our expenses. As of this morning, I know this slide says $245,000. As of this morning, our operating fund balance is about $242,000 because a couple of checks cleared on Friday for bills that we had to pay. We maintain three pieces of the operating account. One is our daily operating fund, and then we have two individual reserve accounts for emergency use that we try not to dip into. So that's how we handle that. Our capital fund is kept in two different places. We have one for immediate expenses, and then we have one that is more of an investment at Edward Jones that draws a whole lot of interest every month, so we are building on that. This slide says that our capital fund balance is about $940,000, but as of this morning, our capital fund balance is actually about $946,000. Now, I do want to kind of bring some reality to our finances because, as is typical of most churches, whenever you do a capital campaign and the money starts coming in for the capital side of our offering, the operating fund suffers a little bit. And we have had that issue just like most every other church has that issue. So it's not something that was unexpected, but I do want you to know we are not flush with cash on the operating side like we used to be. Some months are tight. We're doing fine. We're not dipping into the reserve fund, but do keep that in mind, that the operating fund is operating on a shoestring kind of operation because we are trying to save everything we can for the capital side. As far as where we stand with our church itself, you know, as most people would assume, being in the Commons area of Katy High School is something that's going to limit the growth potential of our church, which is another pillar of our church's vision. So this is one of the reasons the building team was formed a couple of years ago to begin with, is to move us forward to attain the vision that our church committed to. With all that said, I think everybody in this room probably agrees that we are ready to do something. Right now, we have a huge, I'm going to call it a rent leak. That sounds kind of gross, but we're sending a lot of money out the door on rent. In 2026, we're going to actually end up spending about $163,000. In 2027, that's the next year, right? 2027, we're going to end up spending about $175,000 because rent isn't going up 2 or 3% a year. Rent is going up 10 to 12% a year. So the longer we do a rent kind of scenario, the more money that we are not going to get a return on for our investment. In addition to that, as I said before, our growth is limited in the Katy Commons, Katy High School Commons. We are facilities challenged. It hurts our children's programs. It limits our student ministries as well. We just have a lot of issues with that, not to mention adult ministries and retreats and everything that goes with that. So I want you to keep that in mind because this kind of movement forward is a chance for us to unlock our potential growth as Resurrection here in Katy. So keep that in mind. I'm going to turn this over to Heather now because she's going to take you through the process that our building team went through to try and help us achieve this pillar of our vision.
Good morning, friends. Well, those of you who know me pretty well at this point, you know how excited I am for today and that we're able to finally be able to present something to you. So my job today is to tell you what we've been searching and how we've been doing it. So our original outlook started when, as Howard mentioned, we began with a program with Kirksey Architecture. And let me tell you, your building team can dream. They are dreamers. We asked for the moon and they gave it. So much so, our first phase was over 47,000 square feet. Well, the building team got busy. We started looking for land that would accommodate that. They told us 8 to 12 acres, or we weren't picky. We would take a building that would accommodate that. But there was one common pattern that kept coming up. It was too expensive. And if it wasn't expensive, it was too distant. It was too far from the community that we're trying to serve here in Katy. So it was either too big, too small, not enough parking, or if it was an existing structure, it was going to need so much renovation, it just became infeasible for us. So we said, well, rather than settle, we're going to be patient. We were mostly patient. But we were committed to finding the right property. We didn't just want to find the first property. So from there, we had to ask ourselves with each property that we considered, there were 3 questions that we asked ourselves. And the first is, does this property meet our current requirements? So would you all fit in the space? Was there room for classrooms for our children? And was there office space for our staff? The second question each property had to answer is, does this property meet our vision for future growth? Would there be enough acreage, or was the building big enough to handle future ministries and desires of resurrection? The third question that we had to ask for every property is, can we reasonably afford it? Based on what the financial team that Phil has been running told us, we tried very hard to stay close to that budget in all of our searches. So with these 3 questions in mind, your next slide shows you some of the land and buildings that we considered. This is not everything. These are just the ones that in no particular order or reason made the list. So you'll see we had 16 buildings that we toured and investigated, some more than once. There were 19 land sites that I've listed. There were more than that we have looked at. And this thorough process, while it might have been frustrating, but it gave us the confidence to know that we have explored the market carefully before recommending a decision to you today. And as Howard mentioned, we've come up with a current master plan, one that we feel is more in line with the funds that we have and the vision now that we know a little more about resurrection. So the new requirements are a 300 to 400 person sanctuary. The original one, just for reference, was 600 plus. Of course, it must be in the Katy area. It needs to have generational classrooms. It needs to have places for our office staff. We need ample parking for you guys. And it needs to accommodate growth. So if this was raw land, that means it needs to be between 8 and 12 acres, or it needs to be a structure that's going to be big enough to allow us to grow. The market dynamics of Katy, as we soon discovered, is that Katy has limited available land. And when you find that land, it's going to be expensive. And that means it's going to start somewhere from $300,000 an acre up to as much as $1 million an acre. I'll let that sink in a moment. And we also discovered that if you're going to start from scratch and new construction, those prices are going to cost somewhere between $350 a square foot up to $500 a square foot. So we got another strategy with the building team, and we said, all hands on deck, let's all search. Anytime we were in our cars, we were looking at property, we were looking at buildings that might work, new things that maybe had come on the market. And it wasn't unusual to show up to a Sunday morning and someone hand you a stack of note cards with a list of properties for you to search. And thank you guys so much for your help, for those of you who did give us some tips along the way. We truly appreciated it. We also had a wonderful realtor that we've been working with. He's been very instrumental in many conversations with potential landowners and building owners. He set up many meetings for us to tour facilities and property. And then we also discovered in this phase that no matter which route we took, whether we started with raw land or with a structure, the work we did was going to occur in phases, and that was okay. And so as we went through this process and we asked ourselves those 3 questions that we mentioned earlier, we were able to hone in on 3 pieces of property and 2 structures. And man, we went after them. I believe the phrase was, I'm going to run this into the ground. That was by Stephen. And when he was getting a little tired at times, I reminded him of that, and we ran him into the ground. And we made sure that we left no stone unturned. So the first property that we seriously were considering was in Grange. That's the development west of Cane Island. It was a beautiful piece of property. It was big enough, but ultimately we just could not afford it at a price that allowed us then to immediately start building. Additionally, Grange has had a slowdown in their production, and there wasn't even going to be a road to that property for quite some time, and that did not work in the time frame that we would hope for. The second piece of property we started looking at was on Morton Road. It was big enough, it had a lot of attributes, and while we were investigating that property, we were simultaneously looking at a third property on Westheimer Parkway, just south of I-10. This was a great piece of property. It had ample acreage for us. It was near our price range, but there was something about it that just didn't sit right with us. And that is there were two other churches right there next door, and we just thought that probably wasn't the best overall spot for Resurrection. So while we were looking at those properties, we were also touring a couple of structures, the first one being Destiny International. You know this maybe as the Old Baptist Church in downtown Katy, where we actually worshiped one Sunday morning. It was big enough and had plenty of room for us to grow, and try as we may, we were not able to come to an agreed upon price that left us reserves enough to do the renovations that that place was going to require. So we kept looking, and we found ourselves at the Bowery House and Gardens. This is an event space on Franz Road. It was built for parties, not for a church. And it was beautiful, almost 10 acres. It had a lot of square footage, but it was odd for what we needed. And again, try as hard as we did, we couldn't agree on a sales price that would then allow for us to do the remodel and retooling of that facility to make it work for all of those three questions that it had to answer. So that brings us to the big reason we're here. I would like to tell you we came across Morton Road, and for the first time in all of this study, we kind of got a yes and an open door. And so we asked a few more questions, and we had another meeting. And every time we dipped our toe in the water, they finally felt like they were beginning to part. And we finally had a property where we felt a little peace about it. So as we kept going and exploring, we said, you know, we think we've got something here. And I would love for Stephen to come and tell you about 28150 Morton Road, 8.38 acres. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate that, and thank you for giving us a well-rounded view of what all we've been through. We have had a lot of no's on other properties, and we're seeing a lot of positives on this one right here. In many ways, our journey is just now beginning. I want you all to focus your attention on this particular piece of property. And the main question that we must answer on this property on July 19th is this the place we feel like we can build our church? So if we go to that slide right now, we'll talk a little bit about the specifics. It is just over 8 acres. It does have a possibility of acquiring 2 more. We're in negotiations on those 2 acres just east of this property. Don't have any answers on that yet. Not critical to our development here, just would be kind of a nice to have. So we're going to just track that down, see where it goes. There are 24 new communities either in development or planned for development in Waller County right now. There is a lot of area in that northwest portion of Katy ISD to be filled out. As you can see, there is incredible growth predicted for Waller County. During 2020 to 2025, there was 5.7%. The projected growth in the next 10 years is 70%. It's effectively the only area of KDISD left to develop. So there's going to be quite a bit of development going all around this potential church site. Now, when you get into a development like this in an area that is undeveloped, there are going to be some challenges. Site infrastructure can be a challenge in an area like this where there is no underground plumbing, there is no underground sewer. But this is one of the major areas that we're going to work through during the 150-day feasibility study. Assuming this is approved by you, the church, we will enter a contract for the property and have a 150-day feasibility study where we really study all of the items that would be of concern in any development. You know, how to handle drainage, how to handle sewer, how to handle water. So all of those things are going to be studied at length, and a good bit of it has already been started, but there are some people that need to be hired that we can't do that until the church has voted. So we'll get into all that. We're also going to want to make sure that we take a hard look at pipelines that affect the area. A lot of good news on that. It looks like a lot of those pipelines are going to be removed, but we do have to do the due diligence work on it, not only to ensure that the pipelines are going to be removed, but that easements are going to be released by the various companies, you know, that have those easements, because we don't want them to be able to come back and put a pipeline back in. So we're going to be going through all that through the due diligence process. Everything so far, there's been a lot of yeses. The biggest one, I would say, is what's going on with Perry Homes and the development just to this property's west. Matter of fact, it shares a property line for the full length of the western property line of this property. I originally reached out to Perry Homes from a tip from Brookshire Drainage District, which Brookshire Drainage District was also very positive about this process. They gave us the contact info to Perry. Perry's very interested in what we're doing and suggested that they could help us quite a bit with drainage, which can help lower our costs considerably. And even that very first conversation, they also spoke about their willingness to try to help us with sewer and water. So they have already engaged their engineering team to start making some adjustments to their development plan. We are catching them at a really good time. They haven't turned a shovel of dirt yet, so that's good. They have established a mud out there, so you know we're kind of getting in on the ground floor with them. Now, nothing is set in stone with them, but they have a vested interest and are very interested in what we're doing. We kind of protect their eastern edge, which they really like. I mean, they flat told me that they don't have to worry about a strip center or a Howard's liquor store to be built, you know, right next to the entrance. So, yeah. Well, I wasn't really meaning your personal liquor store. I was talking about the one in her.
This preacher thing doesn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. So they like the idea of a church being there because they don't have control of this property, and they have no way to control what goes in there. So obviously having a nice facility next to their entrance is a positive thing. And from what I understand, Bartlett Road is going to be expanded and put through all the way from 90 to Clay Road. So just to our east, to this property's east, will be a major intersection. Morton Road is also due to be expanded. I know it's at least 4 lanes. Is it 6, John? 4 lanes initially, with the possibility of going to 6, which would be kind of like a Westheimer or something for this area of Katy down the road. Okay, so in the next slide, there we go. That is the property as a whole. And you can kind of faintly see the house. There's a house on this property, which we believe can serve as church offices kind of right away. There's a garage there as well. This is the 2 acres that we've been talking about. And then this edge right here, there's going to be, that full length of that white box is going to be a retention pond. So there is a lot of water runoff that we can tap into with Perry Homes. And again, hopefully that will reduce our costs substantially and allow us to have more usable land where we don't have to actually dig a pond of our own. So if we can go to, now I will say this, what we're going to do in this due diligence phase, as well as the engineering work that I mentioned, we're also going to be looking at hiring an architect. That architect will take the master plans that we've done so far, and they will create their own ideas. And the idea here would be to effectively lay out all future buildings, you know, that are kind of beyond our wildest dreams right now, but they'll lay all that out so that building number one is built in the proper place for us to continue to expand our campus years down the road. So we've actually got 4 bids right now on architects. Monday, tomorrow night, the architectural side of our committee are going to start talking about that and getting them going. They'll hit the ground running in the 150-day feasibility study as well to let us know what we can afford to build effectively. If you'll go to the next slide. I was hoping for a different slide than this, but it's good. When we were at Brookshire Drainage District, they kind of showed us a map of the entirety of that northwest corner of KDISD, and you could see all the planned development that was going on. But this is a good one too, because it shows you what is going on right around this church, this potential church site, which is right by that word Morton Road. It's very difficult to see, but it's a little tiny red box. But you got Lakes of Katy, Lakes of Cane Island, Grange, this Rylander tract. This is just what's going on right in that general area. And I don't have the exact acreage, but I know Grange is 1,200. So I think you're looking at really close to 4,000 or 5,000 acres of development surrounding this potential church site. So if you will go to the next slide. I want to kind of reiterate these 3 questions because, as Heather mentioned, these were questions that we have been asking ourselves, but these are the questions that we want you to be thinking about as members of our church. Does this property feel like it's going to meet our current needs to you? Because this is going to come to a vote. Does this property meet our vision for future growth? Can we reasonably afford it? I just want you to know from my personal point of view, I'm not speaking on behalf of the building team or any other group, that while yes, absolutely, we're going to benefit from this property. We're going to be able to make memories here and build a building and do great things if everything works out. I couldn't help but think about the future generations that we don't even know yet that this church will serve. To me, we're doing this not only for ourselves, but we're building something for them as well. And it hit me last week, just the thought of how many families are out there right now in the Houston area, around Texas, around our country, that have not moved here yet, but will, in all of these developments that are going to be built. And they're going to see our church. They're going to seek Christ, and we have an opportunity to plant Christ right in the middle of all of this. So that's just how I look at it. I do want to stress there is 150 days of due diligence that we have to go through. We're going to go through it in depth with all the engineering costs, all the architectural costs, so that we can come up with a sound decision in the end. So I thank you for the time, and I'm going to get Phil to come back up here for just a moment.
All right. Now we're going to talk about the dollars that make this possible. As we go through this very quickly, I do want you to be aware that the finance team has been working very closely with the building team for quite some time, really working hard to try and figure out the amount of money that we think the church can comfortably afford as we embark on a journey like this. So I do want you to keep in mind as we go through this that not only has the building team made its recommendation, but the finance team has signed off on it, and the Board of Stewards has approved this recommendation as well, and that's why it's being brought toward and forward to the congregation right now for your consideration. First thing I want to talk about is strategic asset allocation. I think that Heather and Stephen both did a really good job of talking about what the building team has done and what we've looked at or what they've looked at, and the reasons behind the recommendation for this 8.38 acres on Morton Road. The proposed purchase price for this land is $2.4 million. We will get 8.38 acres plus an approximate 4,000 square foot house that is actually in quite good shape right now. Our capital fund balance, as I said, is $946,000 right now, but we're going to stick with the slide numbers so that this old man doesn't get confused. As I said, the total purchase price is $2.4 million. We would provide a down payment of 20%, which is $480,000. That would leave a remaining loan balance of $1.92 million. $1,920,000 is what we would owe after the down payment on the land specifically. Please understand that does not include any improvements to the land at all. That is strictly the purchase price for the land, so that you are aware of that. Why is this a good idea? Well, the very first thing is it allows us to capture the momentum going on in that part of Northwest Katy. Us putting our permanent home there would open up all kinds of doors, as Stephen just mentioned, to people moving into that area, along with giving us a greater ability to achieve our mission and vision by helping bring those people to Christ and providing them with a church home. And I think that's one of the most critical factors here. In addition, by purchasing that land piece, and for the amount of money that the building team is recommending here, we get an immediate phase 1 launch pad. And really what that means is we immediately pick up a house that may need a little bit of work on the inside to adjust it to more of an office setting, but we would get a place that would allow us to office our church staff there, that would also provide enough space for meetings, potential class meetings, youth activities, and potentially some small children's activities as well, while we wait for the rest of the construction on the first building that we would put on that property. I do want to reiterate that this purchase has absolutely nothing to do with our financial core or our core ministries. Again, those are totally insulated from this purpose, and they operate out of a separate bank account. So we are not going to be sacrificing our ministries for this purchase, and I think that's something that everyone needs to keep in mind as you begin praying about this potential purchase. And then the very last thing on this, and one of the most critical pieces, is this 8.38 acres. It does achieve the answer to all three of the questions that both Heather and Stephen brought forward a few minutes ago. It does allow enough space for us to achieve our entire goal of the master plan that was originally done when the building team first began. Maybe not 47,000 square feet, but actually what it turns out that we need at the end of the day on that. So I do want you to keep that in mind. The next slide talks about our financial strategy. And really what I want to talk to you about there is how we would go about getting this loan and making things happen. The first thing here is that the finance team, the Board of Stewards, and Howard, based on his experience, feel very strongly that we need to go through the Texas Methodist Foundation for the financing of not only the purchase of this land, but the bridge construction loan for any immediate needs, plus the final mortgage once we are totally settled in on the property. And for those of you that are not familiar with the Texas Methodist Foundation, I do want to let you know, while they do operate in Texas, they also actually operate in New Mexico as well. They give funds for loans to all kinds of Methodist churches, both United Methodist and Global Methodist. The money that they raise this money by selling impact certificates to individuals that are investing in the Texas Methodist Foundation, along with other churches that might invest, or corporations and businesses that might invest in the Texas Methodist Foundation. 100% of the revenue that the Texas Methodist Foundation receives goes back into developing churches and other mission-type items to support churches. With all of that, what I can tell you is what we will get from Texas Methodist Foundation that we would not get from a commercial bank is a mission-aligned partner that understands how to build churches, how to build a ministry, and what's required to try and build that ministry, including all of the financial ups and downs based on seasonal giving and everything else that goes into running the financial piece of not only a church, but a building program as well. Moving quickly on, with the Texas Methodist Foundation, we will be able to reduce our acquisition cost as compared to what we would do through a commercial banking entity or a commercial financial institution. Their interest rates are generally lower than market-based rates, and they do not actually mark up the interest rate for any kind of profit. It is a straight interest rate that you are not going to get from a commercial bank. And then really one of the major strengths that we get from a Texas Methodist Foundation loan is the seamless transition through the financing process. We can start with a land purchase and immediately bridge into a construction loan and then bridge into a final mortgage without ever leaving the institution. It would all be one seamless process, which is a very strong selling point. And then the last piece of our financial strategy, as both Heather and Stephen have talked about, is that we want to accurately project what our church can sustain financially in a comfortable way. And as I said, the building team, the finance team, and the Board of Stewards feel like that this process, this strategy, will allow Resurrection to grow in a comfortable fashion without overstraining our ministry cost or anything like that. So please keep that in mind. As far as the specifics on the financing and the near-term monthly cost, let's go through those quickly. As I said, the purchase price is $2.4 million. The down payment is $480,000, and the loan amount is $1,920,000. The funding source that I just mentioned would be the Texas Methodist Foundation. And our initial loan terms, we would be making an interest-only payment for the first 3 years of this potential loan, which would also lower our upfront cost with this loan. We would expect an interest rate somewhere between 6 and 6.5%, which is lower than the market for this kind of financing. Let's talk about our monthly costs, though, so that you'll understand where we are with that. On a $1.92 million loan, we would expect the monthly payment to be right around $10,000 a month. We would also expect to have to pick up utility and insurance costs because we would own property now that we don't own, which means we do pick up those costs. We estimate that to be about $1,500 a month. However, as Stephen and Heather both mentioned the 4,000 square foot house, at the end of the day, we would be saving about $50,000 a year immediately in rent cost because we would relocate the church office from the Pin Oak building to the house that is on the property. So the net change in our monthly costs would be around $7,500 per month instead of the $10,000 loan because we would gain some immediate savings from rent on that. And I do want to remind you, if you remember our capital fund drive, we had a capital fund drive that we achieved nearly $2.5 million in pledges. To date, we have received on this slide about $940,000, which means we still have pledges out there for $1,560,000 that should be paid to the church sometime between now and October of 28 if you go based on a normal 3-year cycle for this. I'm going to turn it back over to Stephen now so we can start with questions. Nobody claps for the numbers.
That's not near as fun. That's not near as fun. Okay, yeah, so I'll put the slide back up on the property and just open it up to any questions. If anybody has anything that they're curious about on any of the specifics. Yes? Okay, so the actual, timeline. Okay, sure. She said that she understands everything that we've talked about in terms, but she's wanting to know what the timeline would be from effectively this point until a building. So that there is that's a little up in the air in that, we just have to go through the process. And if everything worked out perfectly, we're going to vote on the 19th. The 20th, we would enter into the 150-day feasibility period. That puts us into December when we would close on the property. We then go through the permitting process. However, though we would have, at that point, we'd have some preliminary ideas of what we were going to build. There would still be drawings that need to be made. There would still be engineering that has to happen underground. Then you go through the permitting process, which understands at least 90 days. So, we are looking at beginning somewhere in 2027, you know, in the spring, if everything was best. Yeah. Yeah, that kind of gives you the idea, and that's, you know, hopefully things will go well and smooth. So, there was another question? We are requesting that. It is a normal part of a commercial real estate deal because there's so many things. It's not like buying a house. Like I say, there's no underground utilities. So we have to look at the feasibility of how much that's going to cost, how we can make that happen, what Perry Homes is really willing to do. Again, all positive signs right now, but we have to do the work. You know, we have to get down and really get into some agreements with these people, with the oil companies. You know, I mean, these are written legal documents. It just is going to take time to get that done, and that's why in a commercial real estate deal, you know, you want to give yourself that time so that you're making a truly educated decision when you sign on the dotted line. Yes, sir. There is none that I know of. I did hear of one that may be a fair bit north and even west of this area, but there's not any other than that that I know of. Back in toward town, yeah. That's the closest one. So out in this like swath is absolutely. We see it as being in the central portion of where this new growth is going in Katy. And the reason I mentioned Bartlett and Morton Road, that is going to be a major, major intersection in that part of town. So there's going to be a lot of people driving past.
Right over here.
I have a question regarding zoning. Who controls zoning in that area?
It's in the county, so Waller County.
The only controllers of that.
That is correct. There's
Is the
no
county.
there's no city. I think we'll come out of the ETJ, correct? Yeah, we will opt out of the ETJ of the city of Houston, which has to do with drainage and sewer, and join the MUD. Is that correct, John? And so yeah, the only authority will be Waller County.
Let's see right here.
I'm just curious, if we close in December, will we be able to move the office out there immediately so we can stop renting?
I believe so. We have to look at the feasibility of that, but the house is really nice. The bedrooms could be turned into offices right away, and I would think that that would be done in relatively short order. We might go past the holidays and things like that, but certainly that's one of the goals, is to move quickly.
Stephen, Mike, Eastland, and I were at the Harris County, Waller County Summit Friday. And it was for a half a day. And I think one of the biggest assets you're going to have on that is the marketing factor. And that is that you're going to be in a potential area that's not going to be stopping any type of growth. It's just going to be highly developed. And they were talking about the transportation routes and everything else to develop in order to keep all those properties open, and the expansion of the airport out that way. So you'll be able to fly out there at some point in time.
Is that right? Okay, I didn't know that. That's good to
We're
know.
going to install a plane ministries. Yeah. Hold on. Let me get over here so everyone can hear me. Bless. Here you go.
Thank you, sir. You're welcome. I appreciate everything y'all done for this group. My question is, once the feasibility, if this is voted on by the body, it's going to be 18 to 24 months before we have a door to go through. In lieu of staying in this facility and spending anywhere from $180,000 to $250,000, the feasibility of moving this body to Brookshire Methodist Church, having multiple services on Sundays, having Sundays, midweek services, have weddings and have funerals and have baptisms, which none of that we can do here. What is the feasibility of doing that? With this group, with the building committee saying, okay, we will pay you, and I'm just using numbers off the top of my head, we will pay you $10,000 a month for rent, but out of that $10,000 a month, we have controlling of 75% of that for things that need to be done to accommodate this group. It would be mutually beneficial to both groups to get out of this facility and move to another facility, in my opinion.
Right. Right. Well, in answer to your question, that's just something that's been a little bit outside of what the building team has been discussing. So I don't really know the answer to that question. However, I feel like we can get it, potentially with maybe the Board of Stewards. I think that's probably more in their purview. Yeah, just one second. So yeah, I'll find out for you. It's just not, the building team has been kind of solely focused on looking for a facility or land to make our next steps, in the building process. But I'll find out for you. Mm-hmm.
Do we have any competition for this property, or are we under a exclusive contract to go forward with it? And my second comment is, let's just get it going.
I like your second comment, yes. Yeah, we would be in an exclusive contract. There is no competition for this land that I know of. That being said, we want to move quickly. I know the owner wants to move quickly. I will say it's kind of unique. You've got all these big developments around here, and so he's kind of stuck a little bit. His property doesn't become more and more valuable until this area really gets built out, where the infrastructure is already there, because this is a problem that we're working through with Perry, and they have a vested interest in what we're doing, so that's why there's a lot of positive movement with them. I'm going to and have. Are there any other questions? There's one.
Right over here. Let me get right past you here.
How much of our frontage road would we lose when they widen the road?
I think it's 30 feet. And John, is it 30 feet from the center of the road?
They would take an additional 30 feet off where the fence line is, but they would also get 30 feet that's already in the roadway that's prescriptive. The county has never dedicated that roadway. It would be 120 feet total. They do the same thing on the other side.
Yeah, we just would sign off on it for them. And by the way, that's another part of Perry's vested interest, is for us to be willing to do that, because they're working very diligently to make that happen, to get that road widened, and they're going to fight everybody down. They'll win in the end, as we know. Progress always happens. But they're looking for us to be a willing partner in that, so it's one less landowner to fight on that issue.
There's also some partnerships on drainage with the county. They're going to oversight some storm sewers. So our normal flow would go that direction, and it would help us really. I think Perry's already got a contract or something or an agreement with the county.
Yeah, so there's a lot of positive that's going to be happening out there. All right, well, I'll take one last question, and then we'll wrap it up, and I want y'all to be thinking about praying for the 19th. Oh, Wayne's got one? All right, two more.
How soon can we put a sign up on I-10 saying detour here?
Yeah. Pretty quick. I would say the 20th of July, maybe.
Our impact team can build one and get it.
All right, last question.
This is no question. I just want to tell you, the building committee, like my wife said about her rehabilitation, this has not been a sprint, it has been a marathon. I think we need to give them a standing ovation.
Okay, before I want to say one more thing before we turn it back to Howard. I want to thank Heather for this presentation. This is totally outside of my ability to do. So she put all the bullet points together, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And John wanted me to mention, we are kind of going into phase 2 of the building team. We're dividing our group into 2 groups. We're still going to meet together, but in separate rooms. We're going to have an architectural subcommittee and an engineering subcommittee. The purpose of that is to set specific timelines, goals, and things to achieve during this feasibility study. So he's going to head that up. Heather's going to head up our architectural side. We'll come together and talk about it all, but we've got a plan moving forward.
Thank you all so much. I do want to provide some clarity. I do not own a liquor store. I'm not building a liquor store. There's none of that is happening. So I do want to just say a couple things as we finish. First, I want to ask a couple favors of you. One, share with people about what God is doing here. Not just what God is doing here in our building, but what God is doing here in the life of our church. Share this. You may know some friends that were unable to be here today. Share this information with them. We're going to make sure that we get it available digitally on our website. Make it all available. This is being recorded, so you can. We'll send out a link. All of that. Second thing, big thing. Pray. And if you get tired of praying, pray some more. Put it on your mirror so that when you wake up in the morning and you brush your teeth, you remember to pray for this. When you go at night, pray for this. Continue to give generously to our capital campaign and to our campaigns here at the church. And July the 19th, we will gather as a church family for a family meeting. That's what a church conference is. It's a family meeting. And we're going to have a family meeting, and we're going to see, is this the place we want to build our family home? Is this the place that we want to go to set our flag? I am most excited. I'm so glad that someone asked a question. What churches are in this area? There's a 2-mile circle with no churches, no place for people to experience God's love and God's grace. God is planting us in the right place at the right time. There's been so many miracle stories, and we've gone way too long to share all of those. But God is doing great things, and I want us to share just the last slide, if we could. Nothing will be impossible with God. Pray. Get on your knees. Let's pray about what God is doing here. Reminder: we are not talking about the building. That's a phase yet to come. We're talking about the place that God is calling us, the land that God is calling us to build our future, to build our campus. We get the joy of, once we decide if this is the right place, the next thing we do is decide what we're building. But right now we're deciding, is this the place that God is calling us to build His church, to build Resurrection? Pray about it, and I want us to pray about it right now as we close. Almighty God, give us clarity. Provide us vision. Lord, we believe you are calling us to this land, at this place, at this time. Lord, confirm that within us. Confirm that within us collectively as we come to you in prayer each and every day. And as we prepare to come back together for a family meeting on July the 19th, Lord, speak to our hearts and to our souls about your calling on us as a church. Not just to build a place for us, but to build a place for the kingdom of God to become real in Katy, to really reach out to those that are the least, the last, and the lost, to reach out to new communities, and to share the love and the grace of Jesus Christ, the resurrected life that we have in you. Guide us, Lord. Direct our path, and keep us in you in prayer. It's in Christ's name we pray. Amen. Thank you all very much. And if you do have further questions, tomorrow we have a...